Amid soaring housing costs, the city of Miami has banned landlords from looking at past evictions on rental applications. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the city of Miami. Now, honestly, I don't really cover a lot of things that are happening in Florida. You know, it's usually the other East Coast cities like, New York, Boston, DC, etc. that are passing all these anti-landlord laws. But, I looked in the internet and I saw, hey, well, they say they're passing all these anti-landlord regulations down in Miami-Dade County. And that just, it surprised me. It's not too surprising, though, because it is a big city. It's a very, much more left-leaning and progressive place than the rest of the state. So, obviously, they have just a huge number of people who want to move down to Florida right now, and in particular Miami. So the rent prices have gone through the roof. And the people down there who are lower income are really struggling. So they went to their politicians, and the politicians did what they always do. They think that everything can be solved through more government regulation. Oh, we're going to tell the landlords they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do this. And you know what happens when they do that? It creates more problems than they started off with. It causes housing costs to go up, not down. Okay? That's what government regulation does. And honestly, we need deregulation. We need less regulations that the landlords have to follow, and that would allow them to be able to provide the housing that people need at an affordable cost. So that's my opinion, but time and time again, it's been proven to be true. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Do you believe that deregulation, less government regulation, actually would help drive the costs of renting properties down? Okay, or do you believe that we need more regulations, that the problem with the housing cost is caused because there aren't enough government regulations? If you believe that, I suggest that you try to look at it from the perspective of landlords, business owners, etc., because simply put, it doesn't make much sense, okay? So this article, it's coming from the Miami Herald, and it says, what Miami-Dade County's new Tenant Bill of Rights means for renters and landlords. Yeah, and there's a lot of different little things they put into this, right? And I'm going to go over all of it here in this article. Mercedes Cabrera came to Miami-Dade County Hall on Tuesday with photos of cracked walls, flooded floors, and a plea for protection from a landlord she claims is trying to evict her as retaliation for reporting her townhome's disrepair to authorities. We have no rights at all, said Cabrera, 38, who lives in Hialeah with her family in a private home subsidized by a federal Section 8 housing voucher. It's all biased in favor of landlords. Well, I thought that Section 8 housing had people that you could report to, report these sort of problems to. Why are you going down to the county? If there's already a method for this tenant to be able to report problems and hopefully be able to get them fixed, then what's the deal? Why do we need to pass more laws? Why do we need to pass more rules and regulations? Okay? The landlord who is accepting this Section 8 voucher agreed to keep the property up to a certain level, and I believe there are checks and balances in place to make sure that they keep that property at that level. There's no need for more regulations. Hours later, Miami-Dade commissioners passed the country's first Tenant Bill of Rights legislation. The county's first, not the country's, Tenant Bill of Rights legislation that makes it harder to screen rental applications based on past evictions, makes it easier for tenants to bill landlords for repairs, and protects against retaliation for reporting a rental property or rental's disrepair to the government. We are not looking to hurt landlords, said Jean Monestein, who sponsored the legislation along with fellow Commissioner Raquel Regalado. Sorry, I'm butchering people's names. We are just trying to provide equity to those who need it most. The legislation passed on a unanimous vote, despite some critical comments of the proposal by commissioners. Commissioner Danielle Cohen-Higgins said the county needs a tenant bill of rights, but questioned why Miami-Dade should change the law to protect renters without considering protections for landlords too. Well, she said that, but she sure as hell voted for it. If she believes that, the tenants need extra protections, but then she did nothing except for vote for that legislation, well, then she's full of crap, okay? She's, garbage, just talking words and then still doing the wrong thing, okay? I'm not surprised that this has passed, but I am surprised that no one voted against it. No one voted against it. They talk about, this could cause issues. Yes, it can cause issues, and it will not resolve the problems they think it'll resolve. Now, if there are landlords out there and they are retaliating against tenants, they are a very, very small minority of landlords, okay? Now, I'm not talking about the 99% that are doing everything they're supposed to be doing. Yet now those 99% have to jump through extra hoops and do all this extra work because of that, one bad landlord. So I don't think this kind of legislation is necessary. I don't think that it's a good idea to punish good landlords trying to get one bad one, okay? We cannot pass policy that says we are prioritizing tenants, Cohen-Higgins said before ultimately voting for the ordinance. We're trying to pass legislation that is going to withstand the test of time and is going to protect both tenants and landlords and not favor one group over another. That is incredibly important. The new legislation is the latest housing bill to pass the commission during a surge in reports of soaring rents and rising real estate prices exacerbating one of the country's widest affordability gaps in housing. Miami-Dade commissioners have already required 60 days notice ahead of rent increases above 5% and made it easier for Miami-Dade to force building owners to pay for temporary housing if residences are evacuated over maintenance neglect. I covered the part where they said, hey, we have to extend the amount of time before you can declare a rent increase over 5%. I covered that, I believe, on my community tab. That story. I didn't actually do a video on that one because I don't think that is the worst thing, okay? Just telling a tenant within 2 months of you rising the rent that you're going to be increasing the rent. No, I don't like the regulation, but that is not the worst thing ever, okay? They still are being given the right to raise the rent however they see fit. Now, I did cover in a video how they were talking about trying to propose rent control, and basically Florida law for the entire state says there is no rent control. The only time that any sort of rent control policy can be put in place is after a natural disaster such as a hurricane, where they're trying to discourage gouging of rent prices, okay? And that's good, okay? I'm glad that the state has laws in place that prevent very, left-leaning locations within the state from passing their own rent control laws and becoming an island of where landlords have no property rights, okay? I'm glad about that. But as I go down in this article, they're going to go over a little bit more detail of exactly what this Tenant Bill of Rights entails, okay? So let me get down to it. So it says here, labeled as a Bill of Rights, the legislation passed Tuesday establishes several new parts of the Miami-Dade Code aimed at protecting renters. So the first thing is protections for withholding rent to pay for neglected repairs. Florida law already allows renters to withhold rent if a landlord fails to make a unit livable, but the county legislation allows a tenant to deduct the costs of neglected repairs from a monthly rent bill. The county law requires the tenant to give the landlord 7 days to fix the alleged defect of the unit and obtain 2 estimates before paying for the repairs. So there already was a state law in place, to cover this. So to me, it seems like that is just that's a feel-good thing for the tenants. Okay, the law that they passed in the county is a little bit more detailed, but it's really not anything that wasn't already a law within the state of Florida. So, it seems like the county commissioner on that is just trying to, look, see, we did something. Vote for us. We did something. See. Okay, let me go on to the next thing. Banning landlords from asking about past evictions on rental applications. Landlords can still research any applicant for past evictions, but the new Miami-Dade law prohibits blanket questions about evictions during the application process. So, I am not in favor of any law that says that landlords can't, use, the fact that a tenant had an eviction on their record as a screening criteria, right? But this is another feel-good, do-nothing law, okay? So now landlords can't ask on the application if a tenant has an eviction, but they can still do a regular tenant background check, see that the tenant has an eviction, and then not rent the unit to them. So basically it does nothing. It does absolutely nothing, okay? They can't ask about it, no blanket questions on the application, right? In the application process, but they still can use that information. So, once again, another do nothing measure from this county commission. Establishing a county office on housing advocacy. The 2022 county budget already has $835,000 to fund the new office, which is charged with overseeing compliance with the new tenant rules and answering questions from tenants and landlords about the rules. The legislation requires Miami-Dade to create a telephone helpline for tenants seeking assistance. Just more government waste, okay? We're going to create a new office, hire some new bureaucrats to do a whole bunch of garbage that has to do with this law, okay? To chase down landlords and make them comply, and that's what I hate. They just keep increasing the size of the bureaucracy. And where is this money coming from? Well, it's coming from the taxpayers, of course. So when you look at your high tax bill, guess what you're paying for? Ridiculous little county offices, that to basically, for these new rules that they put in place that do the same thing that the state law already did. Okay, ridiculous. Requires landlords to notify tenants of a new owner. The legislation mandates that rental owners notify tenants at closing that a sale of their home has occurred and identify the new landlord. Honestly, landlords should have been doing this already, okay? Most landlords already do this. I know because I've bought many properties with tenants in them, and I asked the previous landlord to please let them know that I own the place now. There's going to be a new property management company, a new owner, and you need to make sure that we get the rent and not your former landlord. Okay, it wouldn't make any sense at all to not tell your tenants that you have sold the property. Okay, that's a ridiculous measure, and I bet you there's a very, very small minority of landlords who don't tell the tenants at closing, that somebody new owns the property. Very small. In fact, I would say it's less than 1%. Okay, so once again, this is another measure. Like these county commissioners are doing, they put a lot of effort into doing stuff that already was covered by state law and that really doesn't do much at all. Okay. And finally, protecting tenants from retaliation if they seek government help with a landlord. The ordinance changes Miami-Dade law to give tenants legal grounds to claim retaliation if a landlord pursues an eviction for no apparent reason other than the tenant calling the helpline within the last 60 days. Well, I don't like that one there. Now that there can be a problem, okay? There could be a bad tenant who has a problem with you as a landlord, and they're going to be sitting there claiming retaliation against you whether you did something or not, just so they can try to get even with you for raising their rent or for some other slight they saw in place. So out of all the things that the commission passed, that is the thing that I hate the absolute most out of it, okay? The rest of it, it's a bunch of fluff. Okay, some of it is more strict than the state laws, and I don't like that, but a lot of it is just fluff and garbage. Okay, so watch out if you're a landlord down in Miami-Dade County right now. Watch out for this mess. Don't get caught up in this nonsense, and keep fighting for your rights as a property owner.